Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit special, a rugby obsession deep dive. We're getting right into that recent British and Irish Lions versus NSW Waratahs match.
That's right.
Our mission really is to unpack the key takeaways, maybe some surprising insights, and figure out what this match really tells us about the teams, beyond that 21-10 Lions win.
Yeah, there's definitely more to it than just the final score.
So if you love getting into the nitty-gritty of rugby analysis, well, you're in the right spot. And speaking of which, if you want more of this kind of in-depth stuff, make sure you subscribe to Rugby Obsession. All the details, links, everything, they're in the show notes.
It was a really fascinating match, wasn't it? Like you said, on the surface, looks straightforward, but the rugby obsession analysis we're drawing from over at Planet Rugby, it shows, well, a much more complex picture.
Okay, so let's set the scene. On paper, it's a win. Lions keep their 100% record in Australia, 21-10 over the Waratahs in Sydney. Sounds pretty good, right? Like a statement win.
Well, that's the interesting part. According to the source, despite winning, the Lions actually failed to deliver the statement performance they needed.
Really? Why is that?
It really comes down to the Waratahs, their resilience, their sheer fight. I mean, think about it. They were missing 6. Test players had only, 26% territory and 33% possession. That's barely anything.
Wow.
And yet they defended like their lives depended on it, put in a superb shift on the floor, and honestly gave Andy Farrell's side a torrid time. Kept it to just 11 points on a greasy, damp pitch.
That's incredible defense from the Taz, especially given those conditions and how much ball the Lions must have had holding them like that. It says a lot about their defensive grit. And yeah, hats off to Darby Lancaster and Ethan Dobbins for grabbing those tries when they could.
Absolutely. You know, the Waratahs' effort really made the Lions work for it. Eva's coach Andy Farrell said afterwards it wasn't the standard he wanted. He sounded pretty frustrated, actually, talking about complete inaccuracy in finishing. So they won, sure, but they weren't happy campers.
Right. And wasn't there some disruption before kickoff, too? Henry Pollock pulling out?
Yeah, that was a late change. Tight calf, I think. Scott Cummings came in. And look, he had an immense shift. Absolutely brilliant.
Okay.
But tactically, it meant Tag Burna shifted to blindside flanker. And the source noted that this made the back 5 look maybe a little unbalanced early on. A slight ripple effect.
Okay. So a win, but maybe not the polished performance they wanted. The source used this great word, nonplusing, to describe it, right? Even said the stadium announcer's enthusiasm felt a bit ironic.
Yeah, nonplussing. It captures that feeling, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The source put it as, at best, hard-fought, at worst, completely nonplussing. It kind of sums up that sense of, well, it wasn't exactly thrilling, despite the effort.
So why? Why nonplussing for a Lions win? What was missing?
Well, if you look at the bigger picture, it really drills down to one main thing.
Yeah.
The Lions' error count. It was, and the source uses this word, staggering.
Staggering. Okay, give us the numbers.
Right, from Rugby Obsession.
Yeah.
Turned over 10 times, 14 handling errors, and they conceded 12 penalties.
14 handling errors. Wow, for a Lions team. That's huge, especially when you think they had, 74% territory and 67% possession?
Exactly. It just demonstrated the complete lack of clinical accuracy. They had all this ball, all this field position, but just couldn't make it count consistently.
And a big part of that was the Wallabies at the breakdown, wasn't it? Charlie Gamble.
Oh, absolutely. Gamble gave the Lions breakdown an absolute rinsing on the floor. He was everywhere. The stats back it up. 12 tackles, 4 turnovers, and he was even third in their carrying meters. Just a constant menace. Really disrupted their flow.
Richard Wigglesworth apparently said at halftime the Lions were masters of their own downfall. Sounds like he hit the nail on the head.
He did. And it didn't really stop in the second half either. Started with a daft offside penalty, which basically gifted the Taz their second try. Yeah. And then later you had guys like Josh Vanderflyer and Tatter Burney losing the ball in contact. The source counted 13 handling errors, 7 of them reasonably unforced, just basic mistakes creeping in.
So what's behind that? Is it the system?
Well, the analysis pointed towards their 1-3-3 pod system, where they try to generate momentum. But maybe they were a bit too eager, a bit greedy, trying to make extra yards in contact.
Right, getting isolated.
Exactly. The one carrier gets isolated, support slow, and bang, turnover. Got some chances to build pressure patiently. The source also mentioned maybe missing a real smasher-type player like a Tommy Freeman to really punch through that initial contact.
Okay, so lots of frustration there. But it wasn't all bad, surely. The rugby obsession analysis did mention some real positives. The set piece, for instance. Sounded like they were dominant, though.
Oh, absolutely dominant. The source said, and I quote, "It made no difference which set of front row forwards that the Lions used. They simply smashed the Waratahs scrum up front."
Even against Tongan Thor, Taniela Tupou.
Even against Tupou. The starters, Showman, Beelum, who has that interesting little technique, extending slightly early, and Cowan Dickey, who was apparently 100% in lineout and scrum and linked up really well with Cummings. They were all excellent.
And the replacements.
Just carried it on. Genge, Sheehan, Furlong. They simply carried on the fine work, maybe added even more punch in the loose. Genge really stood out there. And the lineout, run by Cummings, was called almost flawless.
Okay, so that's a huge positive, a real platform they can rely on.
Definitely a platform of encouragement, something solid to build on.
So despite the errors and the non-plussing nature of it all, were there individual Lions who really shone through, who put their hand up for maybe a test spot?
Yeah, a few definitely did. Alex Mitchell at scrum half, he did his very best to ignite the Lions' back line. Scored a try, beat 8 defenders apparently, sniping around the rucks, made a really strong case for test inclusion.
Good for him. Who else?
The center pairing, Huw Jones and Siona the Tuipulotu, Huw Pilotu as they're being called.
Yeah, I like that.
They showed just how good their center partnership might be. Tuipulotu apparently threw the offload of the evening for Jones's second try. Jones has 3 tries now on tour.
Finding the line.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Ben Earl in the back row, he had a glittering display of power carrying. Topped the charts for carries, meters run, defenders beaten. The source says he's firmly back in test reckoning.
Big game from him, then.
Huge. And one more. Blair Kinghorn on the wing. Looked different level in his aerial work, which makes you wonder, maybe Farrell might want to look at him at 15 before the tests start.
Interesting thought. Okay, lots of individual sparks there. And look, for those of you listening who want this kind of detailed player analysis and game breakdown regularly, that's exactly what Rugby Obsession delivers. It's great stuff, keeps you really informed, so do check out that subscription.
Absolutely. And, speaking of insights, let's go back to that breakdown battle, because Rugby Obsession highlighted how different it was compared to the previous game against the Reds.
Right. You mentioned Jack Morgan's start against the Reds. What happened here?
Well, basically what worked well then really came off second best against the Waratahs this time. There was a real lack of impact in clearing and ruck support.
So not aggressive enough at the ruck.
Seems like it. Josh Vanderflyer, for example, great tackle count. But the analysis says he was completely outplayed on the floor in this game. They really missed that specific breakdown work you get from guys like Jack Morgan or Tom Curry. That abrasive, clearing out presence.
Okay, so putting it all together now, the errors, the breakdown issues, but also the set piece strength and those individual standouts. What does this mean for test selection? Where are the big headaches for Andy Farrell?
Ah, the big questions, right? Well, in the back row, Ben Earl's performance definitely puts him in the test 23, if not the starting 8. He's right in the mix, probably battling Jack Conan for that number 8 jersey. Both are top class, mind you.
Tough call. What about the locks?
That's another fascinating area. Scott Cummings was immense, maybe a curveball for the test side, because you've got Marai Toji, who seems nailed on, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So there's maybe only one lock spot to play for alongside him. And you've got Joe McCarthy and Ollie Chessum, who've also been playing superbly. The engine room is stacked, real strength and depth there.
And wasn't there that really intriguing idea, that curveball about playing a lock on the flank?
Exactly. This is where it gets really interesting tactically. The source floated this idea. Given the size of Australia, meaning the physical challenge, could we see a lock shifted to the flank? Someone big and powerful there.
Like who?
Well, with Chessum playing so well, and Tad Byrne being so versatile anyway, the source reckons this may very well be the case. Chessum was specifically mentioned as a strong candidate.
Wow, a lock on the flank. That would be a statement in itself, wouldn't it? A real tactical shift.
It really would. Adding that extra bit of power and size to the back row could be something Farrell seriously considers for the tests.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this deep dive up. The Lions got the win against the Waratahs, kept the record clean, but it was, well, far from perfect. Lots of errors, some breakdown woes.
But balanced by that dominant set piece, which is huge.
Right, and some really eye-catching individual moments that have thrown up some big selection questions for the tests.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you listening. Just how much will the specific demands of playing in Australia, that physicality we mentioned, shape Farrell's final test XV? Are we going to see more of these unexpected tactical moves, like maybe Chessum on the flank becoming a key part of the plan?
It's fascinating to think about. We genuinely love to hear your thoughts on all this. What did you make of the match? The Lions form? Who makes your test team? Let us know. And one last time, if you enjoyed digging into the game like this and you want more expert rugby insights, please do subscribe to Rugby Obsession.
It's well worth it.
Thanks so much for joining us for this Rugby Obsession deep dive. We really hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to you tuning into the next episode of the deep dive.